given that information, the suspects who are dead, a man, a woman, heavily armed, assault rifles, the fact they were caught so close to the crime scene, what do you make of what happened in San Bernardino today?
Well, I think the scene as it's unfolding is turning the complexion of this investigation now to post-mortem, of course, but then as you correctly point out, what is the motive? Who are these people? And is it domestic, or is it international terrorism, or it's a workplace violence incident with no connection, no nexus to anti-government or radical Islam? Now let's put some of this into context. In the United States, we have a terrible history of workplace violence. In 2014, there were 403 homicides in the United States due to workplace violence. 70% of those incidents took place in healthcare facilities or social service facilities. This fits that profile. What doesn't fit the profile is that most of these incidents are carried out by a single perpetrator who has been aggrieved and has some connection or nexus to the facility, and most of them are carried out by males. So if we look at this just on the facts that we know right now, male, female, they're heavily armed, long arms, outfitted with handguns, maybe outfitted with militia-type material and protective armor, and possibly now a site that may have been booby-trapped, or it may have been a place where this event was staged and planned. Now, that puts that into an entirely different context. Maybe it's domestic, maybe it's international, we don't know. I would lean at this point, and again, I'm speculating, I would lean at this point is to more of a domestic, not necessarily a workplace violence, not a grievance where somebody's been fired. This has the hallmarks of retribution, anti-government, heavily armed people. That's my gut reaction. I could be proven wrong, but I mean, statistics do mean something, and I think we have to go with that. I think the authorities were correct in saying we're not going down to that road yet. We're not willing to say conclusively, but they didn't say they weren't. And I think when you go into a location, if you see written material, if you look at the people, and we will identify them in the coming hours, and we will find out if that location is indeed a hotspot that they might be looking at in Redlands, and they go in there, clear it, it's safe, and they can find written material or exploit computers, whatever. Again, the picture will unfold. But right now, it does not strike me as the classic workplace violence incident.
We have about a minute left, Jack. I mean, one of the things here is it's a very high level of violence. Earlier this evening, some news organizations in LA were reporting that there had been some kind of dispute. Somebody left, came back with others, and started firing. And the level of violence and arms seemed out of proportion with just an issue, some kind of grievance at a party. Having said that, though, I've heard of cases of, running into somebody at a bar. Somebody runs into somebody at a bar. Turns out they're bikers, not just other ordinary patrons, and things escalate pretty quickly. I mean, I guess, I don't know, is there a possibility that someone just ended up, dealing with the wrong person?
And that's what I'm basing this on, based on what we know thus far. And as I said a moment ago, the facts will emerge in the coming hours. But just think about this for a moment. I mean, this is a state-run facility, so it's government-sponsored. There's a lot of CCTV coverage. It probably has some level of security. So if you were going to do something randomly, if you were an aggrieved person, is this the place, would you do it? Or do you want to make a bigger statement, and that is because you are opposed to the government at some level? Who knows? But, to have multiple shooters, we don't know if this third person was held as a hostage, but I would think if they ran away and they were getting away from the scene, that they would have turned themselves in. This suggests to me that there could be 3 people, and 3 people is not a normal workplace violence incident. This sounds to me like an organized effort to do something that perhaps is anti-government.
We have just seconds left, Jack, but I really want to ask you this. Give us a sense of the pressure that may be on that FBI agent in San Bernardino. He seems so carefully to say it might be terrorism. He doesn't want to rule it out. Might be domestic terrorism. That is a big word, terrorism, in the United States. He is an FBI agent. What kind of pressure is he under to make sure he uses that term properly?
Well, having been in that position, I understand where he's coming from, and this is the reason why. We are on tenterhooks here in the country, given what happened in Paris. We don't want to acknowledge that there could be a homegrown situation here, lone wolves, something connected to ISIS. We all know that it's going to happen. They don't want to create widespread fear amongst the population if this indeed turns out to be something like that. So remember, there is a crime scene, there is a process that they are going through, and as I said, and I'm repeating myself now, this will all come forward in the coming hours, but we're very loath to go out there and say that this is terrorism because of the idea that we don't know on any given day where terrorism is going to emerge. We can't answer the fundamental questions: who, what, when, where, and why. And that's why they're not classifying this right now as domestic or international terrorism.